This most recent Kingdom Hearts Union Cross update gave us so many things to talk about. Some things that have gone unnoticed by a lot of people, some things more obvious that branch off into just so many different possibilities, plot points. It's pretty crazy. And we even got some like major twists in this update with things like Ephemer getting the Master Defender, for example. And that was just part 1 of the finale. And if part 2 is even better than this, even longer than this, man, I don't know what we're in for. But one thing I want to talk about today is something that I feel like I haven't seen too many people talking about. Likely because this is something that was kinda sort of known, but I guess the degree as to how this might come into play in the future isn't as talked about. And that is about the data of all of the dandelions being, well, saved. There's a backup essentially of everyone. There's doppelgangers running around, as they say in the update. They even have data of Shurlitzia, who died in the real Daybreak Town, not even our data one. Assuming that the data was saved for all of the dandelions in particular, not just everyone before the Keyblade War, which we know is still quite a lot of people. I'd assume maybe at least the size of one union, maybe more depending on how many people Ava got. But that means that's a lot of people that are preserved just through data. And I want to make that a key word through this video. The Master through this act is essentially preserving an entire civilization in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. If what Brain said means what we think, there's a data copy of everyone, even the union leaders, to the point where potential leaders are straight up doppelgangers. So even if everyone, let's say, dies, defeated, something terrible happens to them, there are backups of those characters, of their memories perhaps even, stored in a computer somewhere inside of Daybreak Town. And assuming this computer, this data is still around, whether it's in the data Daybreak Town that's asleep, or somewhere in the real world where they can access it, maybe in Scala at Kylum, which I'd assume the Ark or that entire area is somehow preserved, even in Scala. All it takes is for someone to activate it, someone to find this out, find this information. And who just so happens to be going to Scala at Kylum? Our boy Mickey. But we don't know what happens in Dark Road. Maybe in Dark Road, everything gets destroyed, or something crazy happens and someone like just destroys all the data, or it can't be accessed, it requires some sort of crazy password. We theorized in the box actually that you can go check out that little video, our live stream clip. We theorized the box might have something to do with this data world, because the Master preserving an entire civilization seems like something pretty important, not something that should just be easily accessible, something to mess up. So it could be something connected to the box potentially. But even outside of it being connected to the box, whether it's connected to the box or not doesn't even matter that much for this conversation in particular. What matters is that this is a thing. An entire civilization is being preserved. They emphasize multiple times in this update even that when the data world ends, it's just going to go asleep. It's not like everything's being deleted, everyone's going to go away along with the data world. No, it's just going to be sleeping. And we know in Kingdom Hearts that sleeping is the #1 way to basically live forever. That is both a joke and kind of an actual thing. So if all these characters are asleep in the data world, what this changes for Phase 2, as I said earlier with the Mickey thing and Scala at Kylum, if the computer is still around, if that room, the Ark, is still around, I'd assume that room has to be protected or something, protected from big calamities or world-shattering events, because the Ark, that room is probably way too important. We know the Ark is a thing in the modern timeline, so it must be, right? If someone were to unlock that data for a crazy event, let's say another Keyblade War happens, which is what I definitely think this is going to lead to. I think Phase 2 is ultimately going to culminate with a big Keyblade War, not necessarily against Xehanort, but rather a war perhaps against darkness, literal darkness this time around. The being, the form of darkness, and whoever else, you know, they choose, or I don't know exactly how they're going to go about that, but I think we're going to have a big war with darkness in general. Not human darkness, a literal darkness, which is what darkness seems to be in Union Cross. I don't know, however that changes, they'll probably change it to accommodate to that. But in Kingdom Hearts 3, our war wasn't really like a big war, like on the scale you'd imagine when you hear that word. But for a war against darkness, 7 lights, 7 people, just 7 people, is not going to fully suffice. So what if we got an entire civilization returning in the Dandelions and the Union leaders, and we have this like gigantic, like, I guess Avengers Endgame like moment for Kingdom Hearts Phase 2, where just everyone, because data got preserved of all of these characters, just everyone comes through these portals, comes through, and we just start fighting. That would be pretty epic. That would be insanely epic. And I think I want that to happen straight up. Like, I wouldn't mind that happening. It's a little crazy that you can preserve data copies of everyone, even like characters we saw like die in Strelitzia, and potentially make those into real people, into replicas and whatnot. But if it makes for a cool moment like that, I'm down for it. I'm so down for it. And even outside of that, let's say a big moment like that doesn't happen. This is another way to introduce even more Keyblade wielders into the plot than we already have, kind of open the perspectives of some of our main characters, because I think a lot of our characters, I think they're aware the Keyblade has a history, but they're also not as aware to what extent exactly. I think Ventus is a key way to figure this out, to learn about like exactly what the history is of all of this. Yensid like vaguely teases things about old Keyblade wielders, talking about masters and Scala and Kylum, and Sora probably knows a little bit through Xehanort, but they don't know to the degree that there was a whole Keyblade society before them. A lot of these characters just happen to kind of get these weapons, but being leaders, new masters, new beacons of light during all of this, I think would put them in a position that I would be very interested to see. And that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I've talked about this quite a bit during my live streams, and I've talked about this with a couple of friends as well, and they kind of feel the same way I'm feeling. They're like, whoa, if that happens, that'd be crazy. But just tell me what you think about this down below in the comment section. What are your opinions on this? How major of a thing do you think this will be, or do you think that like this isn't that big of a deal? Let me know down below. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, you already know what to do. Leave a like, share the video with a friend or a family member, and last but not least, if you have not already and want to become a part of the Union, all you have to do is hit that red subscribe button down below. My name is Prodigy, and I will talk to you guys soon. Peace out, you guys. Bye.